Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Monday, December 14th, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. The Chiefs know how to make things interesting, don't they? After falling behind the Miami Dolphins 10-0, the Chiefs scored the next 30 points and were on their way to a rout, and then they weren't. The Dolphins made the Chiefs earn their 33-27 victory on Sunday. The A-Team of Sam McDowell, Herbie Teope, Sam Mellinger, and Vahe Gregorian talked about it after the game on SportsBeat Live, and we're presenting it here as a podcast where we also get a chance to talk with our audience. So let's get going. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to SportsBeat Live, the Kansas City Stars Chiefs post-game show. This is where the guys who cover the Chiefs get together and talk about what we just saw, and we do that with you. The audience, I see a lot of folks in the house already. Paul, Jack, Craig, Kyle, Brian. Appreciate you guys signing in, and we'll get to your questions and comments as soon as we can. So let's see who's here. Sam Mellinger in the house. What's up, Sam?
You got that right. How's it going?
Good. Vahe Gregorian. I know he's here because if I look around the corner, I can probably see Vahe. So, hey, Vahe.
Hi, Blair. I just want to honor Sam.
We all do. Sam McDowell is here. He was ready to go a few minutes early today. That was great to see Sam McDowell eager to go. And Herbie Teope is also here, I am told. There he is. It's always a roll of the dice when I say Herbie's in the house because Beth has to punch him in special. So good to see you, Herbie.
No F-bombs from me, guys. No F-bombs from me.
Well.
Ooh, he didn't.
There's still there's still a little light out. So maybe later, Herbie. I was thinking, other NFL sites, cities that do their SportsBeat Live, they have to talk about losses sometimes, or just explain things, and fans aren't always in a good mood. And here we are covering the Chiefs, and we sometimes have to explain their victories. And I kind of feel like today is one of those days where we got to kind of figure out what went on today, because we saw some things out there today, not only that we haven't seen most of the year, but in the case of Patrick Mahomes, rarely have seen it. Well, we have never seen a quarter like that in his career. So I think that's a decent place to start. So let's do that. Vahe, I know that you wrote about Patrick Mahomes and the day that he had. Take us through his quarter and his day.
Well, that was a crazy quarter. And the thing, look, we've certainly seen him have his bumps and his odd moments, right? But we've never seen sort of a cluster or a bunch, whatever term you want to use, like that. I mean, I think it was, Blair, you broke it down. I didn't end up breaking it down, but it was in like a 8 offensive play sequence where you had interception, 6. Did that include the second interception?
Yeah, 6 snaps.
6 snaps. 2 interceptions, a bobbled, exchange. I thought he could have handled it. Some people seem to think it was a bad snap, but really the one that stood out was a 30-yard sack that Pro Football Reference said on his database. It basically made their database explode. They didn't have any record of any such thing before. So think about all that going on, and for a moment, it feels a little bit like an avalanche. But I look back at some of our tweets and some of the things we were all thinking and things we were talking about, Blair, and Patrick Mahomes enough to know that that's not probably going to be the signature of the day, but you still want to wait to see it. And, it turned out fine. We can talk more about the 4-minute drill and all the stuff that went into that. But I thought Patrick had a pretty good game, and I think reminds us that he's human, and that it takes a lot for a human to be able to shrug off that kind of stuff. And I think we don't give him enough credit for that in some ways. Not that we don't give him plenty of accolades, but I think sometimes we think he's sort of superhuman and he's just going to do that. And I don't know. I figure it's not easy even being Patrick Mahomes.
Well, he is somewhat superhuman because after that quarter, he ended up throwing for most of his 393 yards and his 2 touchdowns, and he led the Chiefs to a victory. That means, Herbie, run it down for us. AFC West championship was clinched today. 12-1 start, first time in team history. That happened today. We talked to Clark Hunt a little bit after the game about this, but yeah, I mean, for things that kind of went goofy for the Chiefs in many ways today, they still found a way to get the job done.
Yeah, it's every week we're coming up with a record. And it's kind of funny you mentioned at the top of the show that it's here we are. We have to explain why they won and how they won, but they're winning. And that's the craziest thing about it. You know, we can dissect all we want, but it boils down to the big fat W that's there. And they're 12-1, first time in team history. And this is a storied franchise. So, you know, first time they go 12-1 in team history, that's a pretty unique accomplishment, despite all the bad things that happened today. And Blair, you pointed out on Twitter, the last time Mahomes had 2 interceptions in a quarter was the Super Bowl. And were any of us ever worried when he threw those 2 interceptions? I don't think so. I know I wasn't. I kind of figured it was going to be a close game, but I don't think any panic buttons were pushed over here.
So, Sam Mellinger, I know that you kind of wrote around all what we're talking about here in your first column today. Just, you know, the Chiefs can do what they did in this game and still beat a team on the road that's in the playoffs. And at one point, the Chiefs led by 20 points after falling behind 10-zip. It's yeah. I don't know. Are they rope it open? I mean, what?
They break the rules. Like they turned the ball over 4 times and had a 30-yard sack. The 30-yard sack is worse than a lot of turnovers. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they did 4 of one and 1 of the other, and still won a game. And I feel like we can talk about their imperfections, and then they've got plenty. And the one that's showing up lately is this fourth quarter defense. They've given up 45 points in the last 3 fourth quarters. That's the kind of thing that can put you on the wrong side of a comeback in the playoffs. You know what I mean? But so we can talk about that, the interior of the offensive line, whatever. But then you also need to because if you do that, it is nonsensical to do that without acknowledging that they're 12-1 and have a specific set of strengths that can overcome all these weaknesses. There's no perfect teams, right? Like the Steelers, for now anyway, are the only other one-loss team in the NFL. The Steelers have some specific weaknesses that if you get them off track a little bit, they're done. Like, that's a playoff loss. You know what I mean? And that's a normal, really good team. Like, nobody should be surprised if the Steelers win the World Series. Nobody should be surprised if the Steelers win the Super Bowl, right? They're good enough to do that. But they have these specific ways that you can beat them. I just don't know what those are with the Chiefs. Like, last week, the Bucks, or last week the Broncos got a ton of breaks with the red zone. The week before, so a ton of breaks last week with the red zone. This week, the Dolphins get a ton of breaks with probably the sloppiest game that Mahomes has played, and they're still down 20 at home. I just, look, you can beat the Chiefs. There's ways, and we can talk about that if we want, but it's like I keep getting this in my head that to beat the Chiefs once on the scoreboard, you kind of have to beat them like 9 or 10 times on the field, because if you don't, they'll come back. Tyreek's going deep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or end arounding for the Chiefs' first touchdown. And I believe Sam McDowell ended up writing about this. I know at one point into the third quarter, Tyreek Hill had 1 reception and 1 rushing attempt. Both were for touchdowns, and both were kind of, huge plays, right? The end around gets the Chiefs out of the 10-0 hole, and then the pass that beat double coverage. I thought was, at the time, I just thought that was the backbreaker for the Chiefs, because they'd already, correct me if I'm wrong, they already had that made it 21-10, and then McCole Hardman had the punt return to make it 28-10. So, but Sam McDowell, you wrote about Tyreek, didn't you?
Yeah, what interested me from the start of that was just the fact that when one of these guys doesn't have a great game, now it seems to be interesting because it's so rare. But specifically looking back in comparison to this is a Brian Flores coach team. A Brian Flores game plan decided, I want to take away Tyreek Hill. And looking back, the last time he coached against the Chiefs was that AFC Championship game in 2019, so 2 seasons ago, and he successfully did that. Tyreek Hill had 1 catch in that game. Fast forward to today, he tries to do the same thing, and the Chiefs came up with more creative ways, I think, to go against that. Now, we hear a lot of Patrick Mahomes saying, I'm just going to take what the defense gives me. That's what Andy Reid says too. We got plenty of playmakers. Don't need one specific guy to go off. But today they still made a point to say, if you're going to try and take away Tyreek Hill, we're still going to get him involved. And you mentioned the jet sweep was one of the ways that they still get the ball in his hands. And there was a lot of deception on that play. And then he beats double coverage, which is what he saw most of today. And the way he beat it was just a little tick from Patrick Mahomes to put the ball in Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's hands before he removes it. And this is where actually, we talked a lot about Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's size coming out of the draft. This is actually where I think it helped him, because if you look at that safety, he doesn't know whether Edwards-Hilaire has the ball. And I think it's because he's disguised behind the offensive line because of his size. He takes 2 steps forward, and like I wrote in the story, 2 steps forward is too many against Tyreek Hill. And all of a sudden you're burned on double coverage. So those were 2 plays that they specifically targeted Tyreek Hill, even though they knew the attention that the Dolphins were giving him. So that's just why that stood out to me, particularly because of the coach it came against.
I think you make a good point about Brian Flores and the game plan, because not only did they shut out Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, the Chiefs' offense in the first half of that AFC Championship game, the Patriots led 24-9 at halftime of the regular season game that year. And that game occurred a year after the Chiefs went over the top for long touchdowns. Remember, in the season opener against the Patriots, and that's just how much Flores and Belichick went to school, I think, on the Chiefs that night, and were able to use that against them the following year. So, a couple other things, Herbie. Let's talk about a couple of personnel matters here. The only a couple of players who didn't finish the game, Mike Remmers. What do we know anything? I think I saw, is it the Missouri offensive lineman, Yasser Durant, on the field at the end of the game?
Yeah, Mike Remmers left in the second half with a back injury, which of course is kind of alarming, because the guy he replaced, Mitchell Schwartz, is still currently on injured reserve with a back injury. So now you've got the starter and the replacement now nursing back injuries. The good news for the Chiefs, though, is their cornerback, Charvarius Ward, left with a head injury towards the end of the third quarter, was evaluated, and Coach Andy Reid said that he was cleared and he was okay. So he did finish the game.
Okay.
Jason Remmers is the one that you're going to really want to look forward or watch very closely in the coming week.
Get some news on this week, right? So Jason Paddock notes that it's the second game in a row that we've seen Tyreek Hill come up a little gimpy and grabbing his hamstring. I don't know. He seemed to he did that at the end of the fourth down reception, right? That's the other big play that he had today, the fourth down reception late in the game that kept the Butker field goal drive alive. He did kind of reach around and hold his hamstring, but then he seemed to walk normally after that. And the fact that Andy Reid didn't mention it in the post game is probably a good sign.
Blair, are you making me think of Mark Boerichter's tweet about that, like, defensive backs who've just been burned, receivers who don't make it to the end zone tend to grab for their hammy. Just give a little flash.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm probably not, but it sounds like he's probably okay.
Did you guys know the 4 giveaways today, the second most in the Chiefs game with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback? Only the Rams. Yeah, the Rams game. There were 5 in the Rams game a couple years ago, right? Three picks, which matches. He matched that today, and then a couple other fumbles, I guess, in that game. So I want to go back to something Melly was saying about the defense. They were wilting in the second half. Hot day, right? It was 80 degrees in Miami, and they were on the field for quite a while. But I also think after weeks and weeks of waiting for the defense to come up with some big plays, they turned them in today. We saw a few. The Chiefs had 1 sack in the previous 3 games. They had 4 today, including Chris Jones in the end zone, to give the Chiefs their first safety since 2016. I didn't realize it had been that long. And then Tua Tagovailoa hadn't thrown an interception this year, and I thought Rashad Fenton had some good defense that knocked the ball loose, and Tyrann Mathieu was there for the pick. He's got 6 on the season, leads the team. So I thought the defense was pretty instrumental after it was 10-0, getting the Chiefs, keeping the Dolphins, from off the scoreboard and allowing the Chiefs to get to that 30-10 lead. I kind of blame the offense at that point for not adding to the pad the lead at that point. I'm not sure I would put that on the defense to have to close out the game. Although Tyrann Mathieu did after the game, he said that was his big takeaway today, was kind of ticked off that the defense couldn't put the game away and it came down to a final possession.
Yeah, I mean, one of the marks of a good team, and we've seen both around Kansas City, but one of the marks of a good team is when the quarterback says, I let the defense on the field too long on a hot day. That's on me. Andy Reid says that's on me, even though anything defense is not on Andy Reid. Like he's over talking to his quarterback when those guys are on the field. And then Tyrann Mathieu saying what he did at the end as well. Like I do think that the defense, you mentioned the 4 sacks. I'm curious to see what the numbers turn out to be. I thought it was the most pressure. Forget the sacks, but I thought it was the most pressure that they've gotten on a quarterback in a really long time. And
forget
you mentioned that play.
Man, Spagnuolo is really rubbing off
I know, right? You can ask that guy, by the way, you can ask that guy a question about pressures and say, like, I'm not worried about sacks. I'm just talking about pressures. And be like, well, you need to stop talking about sacks. I'm just talking about pressures. Like, it doesn't matter with that guy. But that play, Blair, you just mentioned that play that Rashad Fenton made was absolutely terrific. He got his hands like under, I forget, was it Grant? Whoever the receiver was, like his hand under there to deflect that ball out. Treshaun Wharton, I thought had another really good game, effective with some pass rushes. I mean, it was 17 points in the fourth quarter can't happen, but they did a lot of really good things on defense for sure.
Well, good. I wrote about it, so I didn't want a sidebar to be written in vain.
Right now, choosing to write about the defense before the fourth quarter with this team, though, is pretty risky, Blair.
It's a roll of the dice, that's for sure.
Takes guts.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. Andy North said he really liked the play of Mike Dana and Willie Gay today.
Yes.
I think yes on
both.
both.
Good calls.
But Mike Dana, man, what a motor that guy seems to have. I know we've talked a lot about Turk Wharton, and maybe it's because of his background, is coming from Missouri S&T. But I've been impressed with Mike Dana when he's been on the field. I just that dude he's got an engine.
He plays 100% every snap. The broadcast did a really good job of highlighting that run where he set the edge, which is the thing Chiefs ends have not always done, but set the edge and then sort of discarded I can't remember if it was a tackle or a tight end now, but discarded him and made the tackle. He plays. There's never a play where you don't think, God, that guy's playing hard.
I like discarded as your term there, Sam.
He did, didn't he? Just for
yeah, I think that we need to see that word in print a little more.
I'm on it.
Hey Herbie, I had to look up when I saw on the McCole Hardman punt return, the big block was made by a player. I had to look up really quick. Chris Lamons, guy who just am I wrong about this? He had just joined the Chiefs recently, or was on the practice squad. But he's the guy that CBS highlighted on the getting the big block there. And heck of a play, first of all, by McCole Hardman, career first punt return for a touchdown. He had a kickoff return last year, but that was all part of the avalanche of points that were coming so quickly and easily for the Chiefs that I don't know if you can't say they relaxed, but it almost was too much too soon. It was the good times were rolling, and why can't they stay that way?
Well, it was a blitzkrieg at the start of the third quarter. It was 2 touchdowns in the span of 62 seconds. As for Chris Lamon, he actually spent time on the Chiefs practice squad last year, was on their training camp roster, was recently elevated from the practice squad in the wake of Dorian O'Daniel going on injured reserve. So the last 2 weeks, he's been a big guy on special teams. Last week, he logged 19 special team snaps. So that's going to be his forte as long as he's continued to be elevated up. But yeah, it's that blitzkrieg, I think, gave them that cushion. But then, as we all know, it was like the Chiefs now. It's once you get midway through the third quarter, you're like, oh boy, here we go. And then you got to sweat it out.
Yep. Hey, Melly, Kyle Coffey notes that speaking of the fourth down play, bravo to Andy Reid for running that play. I know that you are 100% behind. Look, I think they had to go for it. Vahe and I were talking in the office. What's the play call going to be? Because I don't think they could send Edwards-Helaire up the gut again. That wasn't going to work. But what did you think of the play call? Obviously, it was a heck of a play call.
Yeah, obviously I'm going to like that call. I'm going to like going for it in that situation. I think they should go for pretty much anything, 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 even. But yeah, as long as that wasn't going to be a handoff to Edwards-Helaire up the middle, I was going to be happy with it. Because, part of the reason, and look, I think most teams, maybe all teams, but certainly most teams should go for more 4th and shorts than they do. But the Chiefs especially should do that more because of all they have. And when you make a play like that where Mahomes is running out, you're kind of moving the pocket. Now I can't remember if that was against man coverage or zone, but you're moving the pocket and you're giving Mahomes like an option. If he sees, a yard and a half in front of him, he can go do that. You're putting more stress on the linebackers in that area, and you've got the fastest guy in football there to catch the ball. So, I mean, it's just they've got so many. I mean, I know I say this a lot, but they present more problems than the defense has solutions for. And when you can do that, you got to take advantage.
Tell you what, though, I thought they should have run that on 3rd and 1, but maybe the defense isn't as tight on 3rd and 1 as it was on 4th and 1. And something else we need to acknowledge today, that the Dolphins, they lost their starting running back this weekend to the reserve COVID-19 list. Their starting linebackers weren't available today. This was a shorthanded Dolphins team, but one that had been playing pretty well. I think they'd won 7 of their last 8 games, losing only to the Broncos in that stretch. And when they got up to 10-0, I was thinking, this is a team that's capable of making the afternoon difficult for the Chiefs, and they ended up doing it, but not in the way that I thought was going to happen. So,
I thought it was interesting, Blair, along those lines that Patrick. I know he's just being playful, but Patrick said, Tua's got a bright career ahead of him, and added the comedic pause and said, hopes it's not too bright. But I think he says that as a real tip of the cap to what he sees Tua's future being and what that's going to mean to the Dolphins.
Blair, you raised a very good point there, because the Chiefs did catch a shorthanded Dolphins team, especially in the backfield. I mean, think about this. Their top 3 running backs were out. You mentioned Gaskin, who was on the COVID-19 list. Matt Breida landed on the list on December 4th, and he's still not off the COVID list. And then they were missing Ahmed, who was out with a shoulder injury. And so what ended up happening here was they went with DeAndre Washington, Elijah McGuire, 2 former Chiefs players, and then Patrick Laird. And so it's good to see the Chiefs defense was able to take advantage of that situation, because essentially you turned the Dolphins into a one-dimensional unit as far as the offense was concerned, because they could not run the football. Washington didn't have any lanes in there at all. But it would have been different, I think, if they had their top 3 running backs.
Do you guys get the feeling we're going to see a lot of the Dolphins over the next several years, that this is a team that's going to move to the upper echelon of the AFC?
I mean, you guys know how I feel about it's got to be the right situation, not just the quarterback, not just the coach, not just the front office, but the whole thing. And it sure as hell looks like they've got all those pieces in place, like a really good coach, a quarterback who could be a star, talent on both sides of the ball. I mean, absolutely. The AFC the AFC in general in the next 5 or 10 years. I mean, it really things change in the NFL all the time. Mark Sanchez was once in the AFC Championship game, right? But that looks like a horse you can bet on. And then the Bills, the Titans, the Ravens, the Colts. I mean, there's a lot of talent in the AFC.
Heck, I like the Browns. And I'm not giving up on Justin Herbert and the Chargers. I am this year, and they'll make a coaching change. But I think that's an opportunity to be successful there with that quarterback. And they always play the Chiefs tough.
I like that quarterback better than what I saw from Tua today. And I haven't seen enough of Tua to sort of give an assessment about what he's going to be in the future. Not that assessment would carry much weight anyway, but I wouldn't say I was overly impressed with what I saw from him today, especially in terms of arm strength. I think his accuracy is more there than the arm strength. I also think there's some pocket presence issues that I think probably need to be cleaned up. And that's probably more correctable than some other issues you'd have with your quarterback. But I guess I'm not quite as sold on the Dolphins long term as some other people. Some other people on this call seem to be.
You know what I liked? It was just one play, and there were other plays, but there was a 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 11 pass he threw that it just, I don't know, it looked to me like it's just such poise and delivery in a tough situation against a big time opponent. And let's remember, he did have, they were down 3 offensive linemen. So, but you're right. I mean, he's a work in progress. It'll be time before we can tell what he's really got.
Down 3 offensive linemen and his top 3 running backs. That's a lot to overcome for any quarterback.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Hey, and I meant Sam McDowell. I meant to bring this up. What was the line on today's game? Do you know what it was at kickoff?
Yeah, it was 7 or 7.5, depending on the book. So that's actually, of course, that's 2 of the last 3 weeks have been really bad beats because the Tampa beat was very similar. But that's the 5th straight week that the Chiefs have not covered the line now.
Hey, and the Dolphins did the right thing by kicking the field goal there, right? I mean, that was the right
absolutely.
thing to do.
The Dolphins already stood alone for covering the spread. I think they're 10 and what would that be? 10-4 or 10-3? 10-3. They're 10-3 now against the spread this year. Best in football.
Right. So I'll have to go back and look at the comments because I don't think I see his name, and I know that we haven't mentioned, at least only in passing, the name of the guy who's become so consistently good we just take it for granted, and that's Travis Kelce. This was the 4th straight game he had exactly 8 receptions. 2nd straight game he had exactly 136 yards and a touchdown. Just a ho-hum, best tight end in the NFL kind of game for him. The guy, he just amazes week after week by just being who he is.
If they took the quarterbacks out of the equation, if they took the quarterbacks out of the equation for MVP, because the MVP these days is just the best quarterback in football. If they had a separate award that was not quarterback related, I think Travis Kelce would have to be the leader for that.
I was just going to say,
I would love to see that between Kelce and Aaron Donald, because Sam, you're absolutely correct. It seems like the MVP award always goes to the quarterback, but my goodness, Kelce is having an MVP type season, and it seems like Aaron Donald seems to have that every year. But that would be a fascinating race if it came down between Kelce and Aaron Donald.
Shouldn't they do that? Shouldn't they make that award, by the way? Like,
they should.
MV, not a quarterback.
With better name, but they should.
I like mine.
Well, in college they have the John Mackey Award, but I don't think that would satisfy Travis Kelce. And Daniel Beisinger and Brian Hardy both acknowledged that 3rd down catch that he went up high. I think it was maybe his best catch of the year, where he went up high for I don't know how many yards it covered, but that was just fantastic reception on his part. Vahe, I know you were going to weigh in on.
Yeah, here's your time, Vahe.
Yeah, time's mine. Just this, it was no coincidence, I think, that they're down 10-0, and Chiefs fans are in the panic room, And the first play on the next drive is that 21-yard pass to Kelce to kind of just get it right, get it started. And I think you could see things kind of take root after that. And that was the drive that led to Tyreek Hill's mad dash for 32 yards that only a world-class sprinter could do, and that we take for granted also, apparently.
No, just another fantastic game for him. And I don't know. The Seahawks have already played and won, right? Didn't they?
They're playing now, but winning heavily. Okay,
so we'll see what Metcalf ends up with. But I think Kelce was only 5 yards behind Metcalf in terms of receiving yards this year, and that's kind of who he's chasing, or that's sort of the race for Travis Kelce to become the first tight end to lead the NFL in receiving yards. I don't know if he'll get the chance if the Chiefs end up clinching the overall number 1 seed before Week 17. I don't know how much he'll play that day, but let's talk about that for a second. The Chiefs just, at least for the next few hours, are the number 1 seed in the AFC playoffs because the Steelers play tonight against the Buffalo Bills. If the season ended right now, this very moment, the Bills would be the 3, Titans the 4, Browns the 5 seed, the Colts the 6 seed, and the Dolphins would be the 7 seed, maybe pending on what the Raiders are doing right now. But anyway, do any of those teams present more of a challenge to the Chiefs? I know they haven't played most of them this year. In fact, they have only played the Bills and the Dolphins of that group. But we'll get into this in a bigger way as we get closer to the playoffs. But just to sort of wind this down and look ahead, with the Chiefs going to New Orleans next week, any of these other AFC teams that should really strike fear in the hearts of the Chiefs?
Can I say that, I don't know if this is contradicting, but I think the Chiefs are clearly the best team, but I think they could lose to the Steelers. I think they could lose to the Titans. I think that's a really interesting matchup in a lot of ways, but just another solid program in general. I think the Bills are interesting, but I think the Steelers, Titans would be the ones that I'd be most concerned about. But Chiefs are the best team, but they're not unbeatable. These other teams are good too.
The real interesting matchup to me would be if they played the Browns, because the Browns just run the ball, and they've got 2 guys who can do it. And there's not a lot of NFL teams out there right now that are built that way. So they lead the league in rushing, so I think that would be a pretty intriguing matchup. The Titans don't scare me as much as they probably would last year because their defense isn't what it was last year. But I still think when you look at the depth of the AFC, it's significantly better in that 5, 6, 7 range than it has been for a few years. So I think whoever they play in their first game, whether it's that 2-7 game, whether they get the bye, it's going to be a tough game, that first matchup.
Okay. We'll be back on Thursday, certainly, to talk about the next game, which heretofore will be known as the Herbie Teope Bowl. So, we get on you all the time, Herbie, about mentioning the team that you used to cover, and now if you don't talk about them, you'll be derelict in your duty this week. So, would only you? I want to know what's your early line on Chiefs, New Orleans Saints, the teams that you have covered the only NFL teams you've ever covered as a beat guy.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are going to win this game. If it's Taysom Hill at quarterback, he's having all kinds of issues right now with the Eagles. The Eagles are beating the Saints right now. But Sean Payton, though, he'll probably figure out a way to fix this issue because this is a big game. I really would have preferred for it to be Mahomes versus Breeze, but I don't think we're going to get that.
Okay, well, we'll come back to you in a bigger way on Thursday about this. You will have the scout for.
It's just going to be you. It's just going to be you two on the call on Thursday, Blair. I'm not coming for that.
This is actually funny that McDowell mentions that because if you remember in 2016 when I was on the Saints beat, when they came back here to play the Chiefs, all the Saints beat writers have said we're not even going to ask any questions. Just you and Reed. So I had Reed for 10 minutes.
I think Sorensen had a pick 6 in that game. I'll have to go back and look. So
yeah. Well, Peyton's not going to be that way with me because he's a different guy with the media.
Okay. All right. Well, look, it was great catching up with you guys, as it always is. And so many questions and comments. I wish we could have gotten to more. I really appreciate you guys watching and asking questions and putting in the comments. And please do it again on Thursday when we come back at you at 9:30 a.m. So for Sam Mellinger, Sam McDowell, Vahe Gregorian, Herbie Teope, and our producer, Beth Welsh, we'll talk to you again later this week. That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff of Derek Donovan, Beth Welsh, Randy Mason, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. The tip of the cap to the A-Team, Sam McDowell, Herbie Teope, Vahe Gregorian, and Sam Mellinger for stopping by and talking about the Chiefs' victory over the Dolphins. Links to their stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, we have another deal for you, especially for those who want to deep dive into the Stars' terrific Chiefs coverage. For a limited time, you can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. After 3 months, it auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you cancel. How do you get it? You go to kansascity.com/SportsPass2020. That's kansascity.com/SportsPass2020. You want more than just sports coverage? I know I do. Check out the entire Kansas City Star product, sports news features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional news, sports, and business coverage that comes with the e-edition. The details for all of these deals can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And if you're having trouble hunting down any of the offers, send me an email, bkerkhoff@kcstar.com, and I'll get you to the right place. So whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Tuesday with another episode.